There's something society doesn't want you to know, and it's so dangerous that throughout history, they've worked tirelessly to make sure you never figure it out. What is it? That your authentic self, the real you, is actually a threat to the machinery of conformity that keeps everyone compliant, predictable, and controlled. Today, we're diving into Ralph Waldo Emerson's most provocative philosophy. Why being yourself isn't just difficult, it's revolutionary, and why the world will resist you every single step of the way. But before we go deeper, hit that like button and subscribe, because we're about to explore ideas that will fundamentally challenge how you see yourself and society. Let's go. When you were born, the world made you a promise. Be yourself, they said. Follow your dreams. Be unique. It sounds beautiful, right? But Emerson saw through this lie. He lived in 19th century America, a time when society was more rigid, more conformist than you can imagine. Yet his message was radical. Most people aren't actually living their lives. They're living a script written by others. Here's what Emerson noticed that nobody wanted to admit. Society functions on a simple contract. You agree to suppress your authentic thoughts, your genuine desires, your real opinions. In exchange, you get security, acceptance, and social approval. And almost everyone signs this contract without even realizing it. Think about your own life. How many decisions have you made because you wanted to, versus decisions you made because you were afraid of what others would think? How many times have you stayed silent when you wanted to speak? How many dreams have you abandoned because someone suggested they were unrealistic? This is what Emerson called nonconformity. And it terrified people then just as much as it terrifies people now. Because when one person refuses to play the game, it exposes the game itself.
You have to understand something crucial. Conformity isn't just a social preference, it's a system. And systems require participants. Emerson identified this perfectly. Society doesn't actually want your authentic self. It wants a version of you that fits neatly into pre-existing boxes. Lawyer, parent, employee, consumer, Democrat, Republican. It doesn't matter which box. What matters is that you choose a box. Why? Because authentic, thinking, self-directed individuals are unpredictable. They ask uncomfortable questions. They challenge assumptions. They refuse to play roles they didn't audition for. A conformist is easy to manage. You know what they want because they want what everyone wants. They follow the rules because rules provide safety. They're reliable. They're stable. They're controllable. But you, if you decided tomorrow to abandon everything society told you to want, your respectable job, your practical degree, your safe choices, you would become a threat. Not because you'd hurt anyone, but because you'd prove something dangerous, that it's possible to live differently, that the rules are optional. Emerson watched this dynamic his entire life. He saw talented artists suppress their gift because they needed to be practical. He watched brilliant minds dimmed by the weight of expectation. He witnessed entire lives unlived, sacrificed on the altar of respectability. And he asked, at what cost? Here's the psychological trap. Society doesn't force you to conform. It's far more elegant than that. It makes you want to conform. Through shame, through fear, through the promise that if you just behave, if you just fit in, you'll be loved and accepted. But Emerson knew the terrible truth, that acceptance comes at the price of your soul.
If this is resonating with you, if you've felt this pressure to be someone you're not, leave a comment below and tell me, what's one thing you've suppressed about yourself because you were afraid of judgment? Don't hold back. This is a safe space for real talk. And stick with me because the solution to this dilemma is coming, and it's more powerful than you think. Emerson wrote, "Whoso would be a man must be a nonconformist." And then he asked the essential question, who is willing to pay the price? Because there is a price. Let's be honest about that. When you choose authenticity, when you refuse to play the game, consequences follow. First, there's the loss of safety. Conformists live in a predictable world. They follow the map. They know what's expected. But the moment you step outside the system, that safety disappears. You're navigating unmapped territory. You might fail. Probably you will fail, multiple times. Second, there's social rejection. And this is the big one. Humans are tribal creatures. We're wired to need acceptance from the group. When you refuse to conform, the group punishes you. Not always violently, usually through something far more insidious: exclusion, judgment, whispered criticism. I once knew someone who quit their high-paying corporate job to pursue their passion for music. Their family didn't speak to them for 2 years, not because they were angry, but because that person had violated the unspoken contract. They'd chosen their authentic self over family security. That was seen as a betrayal. Third, there's the internal struggle. You've been conditioned your entire life to seek approval. Even when you consciously reject that conditioning, it still runs deep. Every time you choose authenticity, there's a voice inside screaming, "What if they hate you for this? What if you're wrong?" Emerson experienced all of this. When he proposed his radical ideas about self-reliance, about trusting your own instincts over established authority, he faced mockery from institutions, criticism from the church, dismissal from the academic elite. But here's what Emerson also knew, and this is crucial. The price of inauthenticity is far higher than the price of authenticity. The price of inauthenticity is your entire life. It's spending 40 years in a career you hate. It's staying in relationships that suffocate you. It's pursuing goals that mean nothing to you. It's becoming successful by external measures while feeling empty internally. It's the slow, invisible death of the person you could have become.
So what's the answer? Emerson's response was radical for his time and remains revolutionary today. Self-reliance. Not arrogance, not selfishness. Self-reliance means trusting your own judgment. It means believing that you, flawed, uncertain, imperfect as you are, have access to wisdom that matters. That your perspective, your instincts, your authentic voice deserves to exist in this world. Emerson believed that within every person lies something he called the oversoul, an intuitive connection to something larger than yourself. When you suppress that, when you ignore your gut, when you override your instincts because someone else says you should, you're disconnecting from the source of your authentic power. Here's a practical example. You have an idea at work. It's different from what your boss suggested. It's risky. It might not work. Everything in you wants to suppress it because you don't want to seem difficult or arrogant. So you stay quiet. Someone else eventually proposes something similar. It works. They get promoted. You get nothing, except the knowledge that you abandoned your own instinct. This happens thousands of times across your lifetime. Each time, you teach yourself that your judgment isn't trustworthy, that others know better, that you should outsource your decision-making to people with more credentials, more authority, more status. Emerson watched this self-betrayal happen everywhere, and he said, "Stop. Trust yourself. Not blindly, but genuinely engage with your own wisdom." Self-reliance means this: you gather information, you listen to advice, you consider other perspectives, but ultimately, you make the decision based on what you believe is right, and then you own that decision completely. You don't blame others if it fails, you don't credit others if it succeeds. It was yours. This is terrifying for most people because it means you can't hide behind authority anymore. You can't say, "I was just following orders," or "I was just doing what everyone does." You become responsible for your own life. But Emerson understood something profound. This responsibility is also your greatest freedom. The moment you stop looking outside yourself for permission, for validation, for direction, that's when your actual life begins.
Now, Emerson wasn't naive. He knew that self-reliance doesn't mean ignoring society. You can't actually live outside the system entirely. You have to navigate it. So how do you maintain your authenticity while still functioning in a world that demands conformity? Emerson suggests what we might call conscious distance. It's similar to what we discussed in the Alan Watts lecture, actually. You see the game, you understand the rules, but you don't play it unconsciously. You make deliberate choices about which rules you follow and which you reject. For example, maybe you have a job you don't love. Instead of pretending to love it, instead of resenting it, you can be honest about it. You use it as a tool to fund the things you actually care about. You show up professionally, but you don't sacrifice your sense of self on the altar of career advancement. Or maybe your family has expectations about how you should live. You can love them deeply while simultaneously refusing to live the life they've mapped out for you. It's not rebellion for rebellion's sake. It's clarity about who you are and what actually matters to you. Emerson realized that authenticity and participation aren't opposites. You can be in society without being of society. You can function within the system while maintaining your integrity. But this requires something most people never develop: the ability to hold your conviction even when nobody around you understands it, especially when nobody around you understands it. Think about it. If everyone agreed with you, if everyone supported your choices, that wouldn't actually be courage. Real courage is choosing authenticity when it costs something, when people judge you, when it's lonely, when it's easier to just conform. Emerson faced this his entire life. He was called a heretic, a radical, a fool. Yet he kept speaking truth as he saw it. Not aggressively, not with arrogance, but with a quiet certainty that his perspective mattered, even if society disagreed. Before we wrap up, I need to ask you something personal. Have you been suppressing a part of yourself? A dream? A perspective? An identity? Because if you're still watching at this point, I suspect the answer might be yes. In the comments, share one way you could live more authentically starting today. Not someday, not when circumstances are perfect, but something you could actually do in the next 24 hours. I read every comment, and I want to hear your stories.
Here's what Emerson ultimately understood. Authenticity isn't selfish. It's actually the most generous thing you can do. When you live inauthentically, you're not just betraying yourself. You're betraying everyone around you because you're modeling a life of compromise. You're teaching people that it's acceptable to suppress themselves. You're perpetuating the system that demands conformity from everyone. But when you have the courage to be authentically yourself, not perfectly, not without doubt, but genuinely, something shifts. Others see it, they feel it, and it gives them permission to do the same.
This is how consciousness spreads, not through force, not through ideology, but through the quiet example of people who decided their authenticity mattered more than acceptance. Emerson believed that society would be transformed not by revolutionaries with weapons, but by individuals with the courage to be themselves. Because once you prove it's possible to live authentically, the entire system loses its power over others. The cost of authenticity is real. You might lose some relationships. You might face criticism. You might fail more often than if you just played it safe. But the alternative, a lifetime of compliance, of suppressed potential, of roads not taken, that cost is far, far higher. So here's my challenge to you. This week, make one authentic choice. Choose your truth over someone else's opinion. Choose your instinct over the safe option. Choose yourself. It won't be comfortable, but it will be real. And as Emerson discovered, real is where life actually happens. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell so you never miss our deep dives into philosophy that actually matters. I'll see you in the next one.